Okay, so this is officially a new topic, but I felt kind of bad that we didn't really wrap up the last one because we ended on a cliffhanger, but it's just the sugya has grown too stale for me. So I figure, how can I address that topic without making it feel like we're regressing? And I think since the goal is to go through the Shemona Esrei, maybe what we should do is at the beginning of each time do a very brief review of just one sentence versions of the idea, of what we covered. So we did Adonai Sfasai Tiftach. So we're gonna do a little bit more than that this time, but Adonai Sfasai Tiftach. So I think we had 4 ideas. Okay, tell me if this, I know it's been 2 weeks now since the last time we did it. One was the idea, and this is for us. This is not for someone who's learning this for the first time, okay? So I'm not gonna elaborate on anything. Mm-hmm. So first was the idea of you need a matir for Shevach because otherwise it's distortion. Second idea was that, this is not in order. The second idea was that that you are recognizing the possibility that you might slip up, and the realization that you could slip up and that you need help with that brings to mind the idea of Omer Lifnei HaMelech, that you don't just casually go in front of a king and just say whatever comes to your mind. The third idea was that it is asking Hashem for assistance. No. Don't remember the third one. Then the fourth one was the idea from the context of the Tehillim, which is what we ended off with, which is that the parak of Adonai Sfasai Tiftach and the parak of Yiul Haratzon are both about teshuva and vidui, and that we said that bracketing your Tefilah with psukim of teshuva and vidui frames your Tefilah in the context of tshuva. And our remaining question was, what does that mean? But we did have one idea as a standalone, which is David HaMelech said Adonai Sfasai Tiftach by saying basically, I am not worthy of coming before you. And that's different than the Rambam's idea of I can't do a Maaseh Shavach because it's absurd. And it's also different from just I need to be careful when I'm in front of a king. So that's an idea that we get from the context, which is that realizing your lowly state, coming before God. And did anyone end up thinking of what it means that why we need to frame Tefilah in terms of tshuva, or what that accomplishes or how it changes things?
Sorry.
Tomorrow, go ahead.
So I don't know. Maybe this is something I think I'm remembering from the last shiur as part of the discussion, but I thought that we were saying that that maybe it's also the context of having requests, that when you ask for stuff, if you were rebellious and then asked for something without an acknowledgement, that would be like
all right, that's definitely true. Brazen.
Distorted.
Yeah, right. We did say that recognizing that you are so undeserving because you sin against Hashem and you rebel against Hashem. So to go in front of Hashem and have requests is brazen. So you need to acknowledge that through the Hashem Sfasai Tiftach. Yeah, Chaim, what were you gonna say? The framing Tefillah's tshuva. Okay, I'll just throw out one idea before, because I want to get to this new topic. And it could be I said this last time. The mitzvah of tshuva is framed as shiashu v'chote micheto lifnei Hashem v'yisvadeh, and when it's your chet lifnei Hashem, and then when you say vidui, it's ana Hashem, that it's lifnei Hashem, and when you do tshuva, like the Rambam talks about in Perek Zayin, it's shuva Yisrael ad Hashem elkacha, you're returning to Hashem. So the whole institution of Tefilah, from chet to vidui to restoration, is an institution of lifnei Hashem. Tefilah is also an institution of lifnei Hashem. Okay, so I think on a very basic level, if you were to engage in being Omer Lifnei Hashem b'Tefilah, and that state of being Omer Lifnei Hashem did not evoke the recognition of the need to do tshuva, then that's a severe lack in your Omer Lifnei Hashem. So in other words, Chazal incorporated an idea of the other side of the coin of the Omer Lifnei Hashem. Tefilah is Omer Lifnei Hashem for Shevach, Bakasha, and Hoda, which is really interacting with Hashem. But then Tefilah is really tshuva is really an inward process of self-examination and bringing yourself back to being Lifnei Hashem. So if you were to, again, I'm not saying why they did it, but I'm saying if you were to engage in being Omer Lifnei Hashem in Tefilah and tshuva doesn't enter your mind, I would question whether you're actually being Omer Lifnei Hashem. Mm-hmm. And so to bring that to mind, the full scope of what it means to be Omer Lifnei Hashem with all of its implications, which tshuva is the main one. So then you need to highlight that idea explicitly, and then Chazal did that by bracketing it with those 2 psukim. That's my elementary theory. Isaiah, did you have a question? I saw your hand flash up. Or a comment?
I wanted to say it slightly differently.
Sure.
About yeah, I don't know if maybe you could have a comment of like this is maybe not true, but like maybe you could say Tefilah is just inherently teshuva, or like the process of Tefilah as like a reflecting on one's self in the framework of Hashem. It's sort of like you're affecting your own soul and like bettering it by doing that. So like doing Tefilah like inherently leads to.
Yeah, so we Ken and I tried taking that approach, and I think we ended up confusing ourselves about like talking about how similar Tefilah and Tshuva are, because both of them are processes of self-reflection. So that is definitely an approach. Last time I tried taking that, it didn't work out. So you can think about that yourself. I also want to just make known to you that there is an additional idea, which I was going to give a whole shiur on, but I'm too tired of the sugya. So it's going to have to just wait in the mind archives, which is, if you look at Rabbeinu Yonah on this Gemara, Rabbeinu Yonah on the Rif, Rabbeinu Yonah has a completely different approach, which is based on the fact that he says in the context of the Perek in Tehillim, in Nun Aleph, it's I'll just go there. I hope this doesn't turn into a whole shiur on. No, I mean I felt bad not wrapping this up. So this is me wrapping it up and feeling bad and discharging my guilt. Yeah, because you don't want a korban, or I would give it. Ola lo sirte, an ola you do not desire. Okay, so why flame shot in terms of the perek? Why is he saying God doesn't want a zevach and he doesn't want an ola? I think you give two possible reasons. What?
People would do that to appease it.
So one answer is the whole classic Navi answer, which is people would think that you could just appease God with korbanos and they wouldn't do tshuva. Right, and according to that reading, it makes sense that it says the real offerings of God, the real sacrifices to God, are a broken spirit and a heart that is broken and crushed, that God will not despise. Right, so that's saying that you don't want the korban. The korban is just a vehicle for doing. Oops, I'm not sharing the screen. The korban is just a vehicle for doing tshuva, and you really want tshuva. That's how I would have interpreted it. What is another reason why, context specific, with David's situation here, why does he saying God does not want a korban?
Is it also possible that the lead us to the other stuff?
That's a third another reason, which is the Rambam's thing, that God does not have a, for lack of a better term, primary ratzon for korbanos. It's like a concession to human nature. So you could definitely take that approach. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is true, but in order to bring a korban, you have to have done teshuva on the thing.
That's true.
But I guess that's not really an ola or a zevach.
Yeah, but you're getting warmer. It has to do with the chait that he did. Yeah.
More of a question. If we're relating to korbanos being the instrument, I guess, to do teshuva, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of to put that in analogous terms, like if it was an actual instrument, teshuva would be the sound, so to speak. Is that like a fair comparison? I don't know if it's
no.
Right, because you don't need the korban.
No, tshuva, if in an instrument comparison, tshuva would be the blowing on the instrument, and the sound would be the kapara or something like that. Yeah, yeah. So the shin was Batsheva. So why doesn't God want a korban for the chait with Batsheva? Because it was intentional, and you can't bring a korban on a chait b'mezid, or on an avon b'mezid, right? You can only bring korbanos on shogeg. So Rabbeinu Yonah takes that approach and says that's why David is saying you don't want korbanos, because korbanos are not going to help with my sin. So then Rabbeinu Yonah makes somewhat of a jump and says, and nowadays we don't have korbanos at all. So just like David had to make recourse to Tefilah for kapara, so too we need to make recourse to Tefilah for kapara, because we don't have any korbanos. So the question on that, again, is just if you want to work on it, is what's the idea of Tefilah as kapara, first of all, and the other thing is, if you look through the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva Perek Aleph, he says, now that we don't have a Beis Mikdash, ein lanu ela tshuva. All we have left is tshuva. Tshuva is how we get kapara. So it's weird that the Rabbeinu Yonah makes it sound like all we have is Tefilah. Of course, Rabbeinu Yonah is not denying tshuva. He wrote the Shari Tshuva, but he's saying that that's why we bring this Adonai Sfasai Tiftach, is to bring to mind the idea that tefilos are b'makom korbanos, and he has a whole thing on that. So that's the approach that we did not take, but just so you know that it exists. Okay, so if you want to get a shiur, you don't have to unless you needed to see the word Baruch, because that's all we're doing tonight. Okay, yeah.
Like, you should repeat again why even though you're standing before God, you didn't have to in mind.
Yeah, because standing before God means that you are reflecting on like who you are, who God is, and where you fit into God's universe, like what you are looking at, in the scheme of things, right? So tshuva is a process of standing with Hashem and seeing where you fit in line with God's will and such. So it's almost I don't want to call it a contradiction, because I would say it's more of a chisaron. It's like a incompleteness. If you're standing before God, allegedly examining yourself in the Tefilah sense, but you're not moved to do tshuva. How can you examine yourself and stand before God if you're not doing tshuva? Yeah, you could always down mindlessly, but that's not Tefilah. Yeah. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now moving on. Good, only 11 minutes. I feared this would be half an hour. Okay. So Baruch Atoh Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. So really, technically, we're starting the Amidah. But because, and so that technically only says Baruch Atoh Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu, but I kind of want to take up the whole sugya of Baruch Atoh Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, because that's going to be more common. And the brachos, first bracha, this one Esra ends with that, so we're going to have to get there anyway. But we're going to start with Baruch, okay? And not even, it's Baruch Atoh Hashem, but there's a whole separate shiur on Atah. Oh, I want to say also, this is actually a rehash of a series of shiurim I did. Yeah, so I did the 5-minute kavana. This is a series I produced in the very beginning of when I first came to yeshiva, and I made 5-minute videos where I went through ideas of Tefilah, but it was so hard to get these ideas. Like what I'm going to do now is a hour version of a shiur that I did in 5 minutes. Okay, so the only reason I'm telling you this is not so you can listen ahead and get all the answers, but it's so that if you ever want to review any of the ideas we go over, I'm sure we're going to say new stuff also, but you can get 5-minute versions of the ideas. And this is, I think, only on YouTube. Oh, did I write that?
No, you said it's
improves. Oh. That's funny. Yeah.
I surely love my very lovely kavana.
Yeah. So if you go on YouTube and you type 5-minute kavana, then you'll find the videos. I don't know if this is on the Tefilah podcast. No, it's not. Yeah. So it's only available on YouTube. Okay. So that's if you want it. Okay. But so the question is, Baruch Atoh Hashem, right? What do we mean? Okay. And since some of you already know the answer to that, then I'm going to try to convince you that we're going to go way more in depth than you ever thought was possible. What I did was I basically compiled all the Rishonim who talk about what the term Baruch means. And the way I see it is they're going to all say the similar ideas. You okay there? Got a drinking problem. They all overlap, but our goal is going to be, we're going to talk about the main idea, but then we're going to see what nuances each of them bring to the table. And there are many nuances. Okay. So rather than asking you point blank, what is the idea of Baruch Atoh Hashem? What's the problem on the surface with the notion of saying Baruch Atoh Hashem? What? Yeah, go ahead.
The problem is who are we to tell God what he is?
Okay, who are we to tell God what he is? Now that's the
problem.
That's the general problem of Shevach, right? Yeah, Tamar?
I guess if you interpret it as well-wishing, it's not really applicable to God.
Right. Is that okay? Yeah, that's the main problem, right? Is if you look at all the cases in Torah where one being blesses another.
What's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's supposed to be a gas gun on this bottle, but they didn't come up with stuff.
Okay. What do you call it? If you look at all the other cases in Torah where one being blesses another, whether that's one person blessing another or whether that's God blessing someone, the giver of the bracha is bestowing something or asking for something to be bestowed upon the recipient, right? So when Yitzchak blesses Yaakov and Esav, he's giving them something, or he's asking Hashem to give them something. And when Hashem blesses us, Baruch Atah Ba'ir, Baruch Atah B'Sadeh, right? Baruch Pi, Tanacha, whatever the rest of the pasuk is, So he's saying you will be blessed. Or when Hashem, what's the first bracha in Torah?
Oh wait.
Trick question.
No. The fish?
Yeah, the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fish and the birds.
Yeah. I'm sure
Um,
it was both of them were just the fish.
yeah, that's very good. So on the end of day 5,
Yeah.
it says, after God creates the fish and the birds, by Baruch Osam Elokim Lemor Pru Urhu Milos Arts. Sorry, it's a mime by Yamim of Ovir Arts. Saying that the fish that filled the land would not be a blessing, would be a curse. And then he gives a similar blessing to Adam and Chava. By Baruch Osam Elokim Vayomrelhem Pru Urhu Milos Arts V'chliv Shua. So it's all giving something or expressing I was going to say like a tefilah or a wish for something to be bestowed. Okay, so when you say Baruch Atoh Hashem, the problem is can't do that, right? Yeah. Okay. So since I think we probably know the answer.
No, it's Revia.
Okay. Well, we are going to do that. What have you heard as the answer? God is the source of bracha. Okay. So this is what I said that all the Mefarshim say. But so we're going to read it in the Mefarshim, but then look at the nuances, and there are a lot of nuances. Well, we'll see. Okay. So the Abudirham in the Brachos HaShachar starts off Baruch Atoh Hashem. He says, so first of all, he identifies the pasuk because every phrase comes from a pasuk. Al Shem Baruch Atah Adonai Lamdeni Chukecha. Okay, any student of halacha who has been through Hilchos Brachos should be familiar with this pasuk. When does this come up in halacha?
I mean, when we mess up on a
When you mess up on a bracha, if you find yourself, I'll just say it in case people don't know, if you start to say a bracha and then you realize that you shouldn't say a bracha or that like it would be a bracha of latala, you say Baruch Atah Adonai Lamdeni Chukecha, and you just finish Lamdeni Chukecha because then you're saying a whole pasuk and it's not a bracha, you're converting into a pasuk. Okay, yeah. So that's where the phrase comes from. If we have time tonight, we'll get to that in context. Okay, you can see what parak it's in.
Yes, the big one.
The big one, right? Kuf Yotes, the parak, and we actually you can guess if I said if I did tell you where in the parak it is, you would guess it's in the beginning because it's in the base section. So we it's not the first one, it's the fourth one, fifth one.
Oh, I forgot there's 8.
Yeah, there's 8 in each one. So we actually last year, does anyone remember? Did we finish? I know we did Aleph. Did we finish the base or did we just set it up? I feel like it was one of the last things we did before the summer.
In the big parak.
In the big parak, yeah.
Right.
Where we treated each one as its own
We
thing.
may have just set it up. I don't know.
Okay, fine. So I maybe you can check there and see if we got further, but maybe if we have time tonight, we'll see this in context. But then he explains, he says, Baruch eno lashon pa'ul ella kmo rachum v'chanun. Okay, so Baruch is not a verb. You're not saying, may God be blessed, but like receive blessings. Okay, rather it is an adjective like rachum and chanun. You know, I was thinking about this on my way here this morning randomly. That I was thinking, I wonder how many people still know that I don't answer the chat during a shiur, and I was like, maybe I should tell people. And then I always feel bad that I don't actually check the chat, but I have to stay firm. I'm not going to check the chat during shiur. So if whoever typed in the chat, either you're gonna have to say it or you're gonna have to tell someone else to say it because I'm not going to read the chat. That's my policy. I'm sticking to it. Okay. Anyway, so Baruch is an adjective. Kmo rachum v'chanun. What does it mean? Shehu atzmo hu mekor habrachos. He himself is the source of brachos. Ve'eno mekablim mecher. I mean, he doesn't receive them from others. So the examples he gives is rachum does not mean that God is the recipient of acts of mercy. Chanun does not mean he is the recipient of the acts of graciousness. It means he is the one that mercy comes from. He is the one that graciousness comes from. So Baruch means he is the source of bracha. Okay. And what does, let's see if the BDB dictionary on all Torah says this. Yeah, Ayala?
I can't see the Abudirham unless it's still the old screen that we're looking at.
Thank you. I think I accidentally shared just the part of the screen. Thank you for saying something. Where's this? Yeah. What is the word bracha? So I know we translate bracha as blessing. Anyone else know what bracha means? Yeah. Fountain. Okay, good. A lot of people don't know that. Also means knees. Yeah. Let's just see if he says it here. It might just not show up in this part of the dictionary. Let me actually check. Brechos mayim is a phrase that we say sometime. Brechos, is that in, anyone recognize that phrase? Brechos mayim. I know it looks like brachos mayim. Is that a pasuk? Let's see. I didn't, just while we're waiting. Yeah.
Oh no, it's just
Oh yeah. When I was going through the halachos of who can be the shliach tzibur last week, and one of the halachos is there it is in Koheles. That's how I know it. Is that for I was going to say court appointed shliach tzibur, but a congregation appointed shliach tzibur, one of the requirements is he needs to be a baki in Torah Nivim Ksuvim. He needs to be fluent in the psukim. I don't know what baki means, but this is why, because so many of the psukim, so many of the phrases in Tefilah come from psukim. So brechos, let's see what the BDB says here. Pool or pond, but I think Eli's right though. It means a like a wellspring. Okay, like Yehi Mokorcha Baruch, may your wellspring be blessed, means like may it flow abundantly. So that's like the imagery. Chas v'shalom, we have imagery about God, but like that all blessings flow from God. Okay, so that's the basic idea of Baruch. So that's why if you are, I know Art Scroll translates it as blessed are you Hashem in every bracha. I think the way I can remember this when I would teach this in Shahavet, whenever we would translate bracha, I think the more correct translation is you Hashem are the source of blessing. That's a more accurate idea instead of just saying blessed are you, because first of all, who says blessed are you? Source of blessing is like an actual sentence that you can like have kavanah for. Yeah, Eli.
So you said in this context it's an adjective.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't say that, but that's how I'm interpreting it, because rachum and chanun are adjectives.
Adjective, like how's it like this?
Or a I mean there's no, okay, we can't put it in adjective term in English. No, blessingful. Yeah, I guess would be like blessingful would be like the way to say it, like full of blessing.
I guess what I wanted to ask though is there any other time that we use bracha in this context? Anywhere else? You mean other than about Hashem? Yeah, like anytime we're attributing a source of some sort of attribute or a source of some sort of.
Good question. I don't know.
I don't really understand the question.
Well, yeah, let me make sure I understand the question also. Are you saying specifically with the word Baruch, or are you saying this verb form or this word form?
Baruch.
Baruch, yeah. Or do we use that about anything else other than Hashem? That's like the source of.
You say like a person is Baruch. You say like a person can be Baruch.
Yeah, or like, let's say for example, if you said, I don't know if we ever say this, but like your field is Baruch, like in that it gives forth lots of fruits. Like do we ever say that?
You say your field is blessed.
Say again.
Is there an idea of blessing your parents for certain things?
I don't know.
Because you could, say that they provide you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is an unfair question, but I want to ask it anyway. I feel like maybe it's not in a pasuk, so maybe that's why they didn't do it. But I feel like there's a different way that you could conjugate this sentence such that it would like express that idea expressly.
Which sentence?
I feel like you could say Hashem hu ha-mevorich es hakol, something like
right.
that.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if it's like a valid question.
I hear.
To ask, but.
Yeah. If I knew more grammar, I would be able to answer you about why that's different, but I don't know. Yeah. I can give my layman grammatical intuition. This is not even grammatical intuition. This is just like meaning intuition. If you said, for example, hu ha-mevarach has hakol, he is the one who blesses everyone, it might show the idea that all blessings come from Hashem, but it wouldn't show that that he is the wouldn't have the idea that I keviyachol, as we say, that bracha resides in him, that bracha emerges from God himself.
So we'll use the word emerge in Hebrew instead. I'm saying I mean, my point is that is there a point to the ambiguity? I mean, I don't know if you understand that answer.
So I'm trying to answer your question in a different way. I'm trying to say that if you just said Hashem is the blesser of everyone, it's referring to the fact that he does the acts of blessing and that all recipients of blessing have it from him, but it wouldn't show equality in him. And that's what we're trying to do allegorically, that he has the quality of being Baruch, just like he has the quality of being Rachum and Chanun and Tzaddik and Yashar. We're trying to make this into a mida of Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's how I would say it. Saying he is Mevarach everyone is not a mida of Kadosh Baruch Hu. So that ended up being a good question.
Okay.
Yeah, David?
We're learning this in the realm of Baruch, not in the realm of Tefilah, right?
Anytime you say the phrase Baruch Atoh Hashem, then this applies.
But at the rest of our shiur, we're not thinking about it. Baruch as far as Tefilah particular, as much as like
it's the same thing in Birkas Mitzvah, Birkas Tefilah, Shemona Esrei, Birkas Gomel, all of it. Yeah. Because they set it up the same way. Okay, ready for the next idea? You good? Okay. All right. So now we get to Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher in the Akemach, okay, which you quoted, right, in your Dvar Torah. I heard that. I was like, oh, no one ever quotes the Akemach. For those who don't know what the Akemach is, would you like to say? No, I'm just kidding. No.
Which one? I don't remember.
I don't remember what.
We saw like
Yeah, the Dvar Torah you gave in Shul. How many Dvar Torahs have you given in Shul recently?
Like 3 weeks ago.
You remember giving a Dvar Torah in Shul, right?
Weeks ago, I'm just trying to remember
yeah.
Like what cut?
Okay, whatever. So the Akemach is a hashkafa book that Rabbeinu Bachya wrote that's in alphabetical order by topic, and you can it reads like drushos, like a Devar Torah or like essays. Actually, is a better way to say it. So like it's fun. It's one of those fun books that I don't know. I assume Yeshiva has a copy. You can like flip through and like see. Oh, what does Rabbeinu Bachya think about Hanukkah? What does he think about like Sfiras HaOmer? What does he think about Yichud Hashem? You know. So it's a good thing to know about. So in Bracha he says. So as I read this, you tell me what it reminds you of, okay? And I think the answer should be pretty clear. So brachos are not a need of God. They're a need of people. Because since he is the source of bracha, and all brachos flow from him or emanate or flow in a cause and effect chain. It would be the mishtalshal from him, okay? And all of the existences who bless him, none of the brachos are fit for him, meaning like you can't actually like give brachos to him. He is the first existence, who brought into existence all existences. And all their existence is only from his existence. And everyone needs him. His existence is self-sufficient. He doesn't need anyone at all. If everyone were to bless him all day, and tell his praises all day long, and all night. What does yichashu mean? How do I translate it here? No, I'm not saying you quoted this. I'm saying you quoted the Sefer.
Okay, I was so confused. Okay,
that's why I spent 5 minutes talking about the Sefer. What could you give him? What could he take from you? The only benefit and abundance is for us. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it reminds me of the Rambam's, bit, but then also
just say make sure we're talking about the same Rambam's bit. Yesodei Torah, okay? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, right.
And then it also reminded me at the end.
Yeah.
Of and maybe the Rambam says this too. That I'm not remembering, but it reminds me of we say it. It's a paragraph to him, I believe. Oh, it's is it Mishmas? Yeah, we were saying the Haggadah too, right? We're saying Mishmas and Haggadah, right?
Yeah.
So the part where it's like,
oh yeah, if all our mouths were filled with song and all that stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay, good. I was gonna say it reminds me of 3 things. The one I was hoping you would get is the Rambam, right? So let's talk about that first. The Rambam's bit. Yeah, it's a bit he does, like a comedy bit, the Yesodei. Yeah, so let's read it again because you can never read this too much. Unless you're one of the people who wants to burn it, in which case once is too much. Yesodei Torah Aleph, according to the correct Girsa. Yesodei Sos V'Amad Chachmos, the foundation of foundations and the pillar of all sciences. Leda is to know Sheisham Matzui Rishon, that there exists a first existence. First not being in time, first being in logical first or in by nature. V'hu Mamsi Kol HaNimtza. And he brings into existence the entirety of existence, not like the doofus Rambam say. He brings into existence every existing thing, okay, which is true, but that's not the entirety of existence. All existences from heaven and earth and everything in between only exist because of the reality of his existence. If you were to think that he does not exist, nothing else could exist. And if you could think that no other things exist besides him, he alone would exist, and he would not be negated by their negation. Because all existences need him. And he, blesses, he does not need Baruch Hu. I've never noticed that before. That's significant. That's not just me saying ooh. He doesn't need them or any one of them. Lefikach, therefore, therefore his reality is not like the reality of any one of them. Hu shen navi omer. This is what it means when it says, Hashem Elokim emes. Hashem God is real. Hu levado ha'emes. He alone is the reality. The ein la'acher emes kamito, and no one else has reality like his reality. Behusha Torah omeres. This is what the Torah and the bumper stickers say. Ein od milvado. Okay, there's no one else besides him. I don't know if that's what the bumper stickers mean, but down the that's what they mean. Kolomar, meaning to say ein sham matzu emes milvado kamoso. There's no real existence like him, other than him. There's like him. And then he identifies that this Matsui is the Adonai Olam. Yeah.
What was Baruch again here?
Hamatsu is who Eloka Olam. This God is this existence is the God of the world or the God of eternity. I'm not sure which one the Rambam means here. I assume he means the God of the world because he's going to go on to talk about that. And he's speaking in Mishnah Hebrew. He says, not Tanakh Hebrew. Adon kol ha'aretz, the Lord of all the earth. V'hu amani hagagal b'koach ein lo kates v'tachlis. He causes the sphere to rotate without any end or limit. B'koach ein la hefsek, with the power that has no that doesn't cease. Shagalgal soviv tamid yevshar sheyisov b'lo mesabiv, because the sphere rotates constantly. And there's no one who can yevshar sheyisov b'lo mesabiv. It's impossible for it to turn without a turner. V'hu Baruch Hu, and he, blessed is he, hu mesabiv also below yad below guf. He causes it to rotate without a hand, without a body. Before I call on you, side point here. I'm gonna disagree with a version of what I've heard people in the yeshiva say in earlier times. I don't know if they've changed their opinions, but I've heard people say that the Rambam here is quoting an Aristotelian proof, which is outdated, okay, and that of course the Rambam knew that, like, you know, that there's no guarantee that Aristotle's science is the real science, and so he's just bringing it to show, like, a principle that you should basically find in your modern physics what the equivalent was in Aristotle's physics. Basically, in Aristotle's physics, there was no way to explain. I'm still quoting the idea I heard. There's no way to explain the rotation of the big celestial sphere, the Gagal Yomi or whatever. Sorry, PTSD trauma from my Hilchos here in 2020. Do you remember that, Yaakov? You were there for that? Yeah. Okay. And so that was like a thing that could only be explained through God. And so people who want to read the Rambam this way say we should find the equivalent in our physics now that can only be explained through God. So let's say it would be like the fine tuning of the constants in the universe, right? Okay, so that is one way to read the Rambam, right? I don't dispute the truth of any of those statements, but I do dispute that that's what the Rambam meant. I think that the Rambam, first of all, it's possible that the Rambam did hold that this was not a matter of science, that this was a matter of metaphysics, and that Rambam knew that science changes, you know, but it's possible that he held that this was in like a type of metaphysics, that like this has to be a thing. But furthermore, I did find this is a book, Ed Fesser, Christian philosopher, 5 proofs of God, of the existence of God. So I haven't read the whole book. I only read the first 2 proofs. Yeah, it's definitely good in some ways. I mean, it's written by a Catholic, so you can't take everything. But so he is the first one who like convinced me that this is actually a philosophical proof, not a scientific proof, and it's the proof of the prime mover. And I don't know if you remember this, Ayala. I did an extremely condensed version of this on a PowerPoint that I gave over to the 9th graders. That is showing it's a philosophical proof that is not dependent on scientific data. And so I am like of the opinion that that's what the Rambam meant, that Rambam was not saying like, this is the best that my science can do, and you in the future will rely on your science. I think that the Rambam was giving a philosophical proof, and that that's what he means. I'm not saying that he's saying that that's the only way to like know God, but he's giving this as like a philosophical proof. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Elia and then Yaakov. Yeah.
Do you mind just repeating exactly what the Rambam said and how it's understood?
In this last part is, I don't want to go into in depth, but they had this idea that the Earth is in the center of the universe, and then there's the lunar sphere with the moon embedded, and then other spheres, and then there's a giant sphere, and these are spheres made of the 5th element. And the motion of that sphere is what causes the motion of all the other spheres. So you can explain the motion of the lunar sphere by the sphere outside of it, and so on and so on and so on. But then there's this idea that only a a unmoved mover could move the big sphere. It all stems back to that, and that's God. Yeah. And I've heard people say that we know that it's not true now because we know the principle of inertia, which is an object in motion will continue. I don't know how to recite it. Will continue in motion, and an object at rest will stay at rest. So Aristotle didn't have an idea of inertia. So like Newton disproved Aristotle. So it's true that Newton disproved Aristotle, but not this, because I don't think Aristotle is talking about physics here.
Even Newton, I think, though, had other principles that he said, okay.
Aristotle, the wrong was quoted. What was it?
Even Newton had certain understand or lack of understanding that he said, like, okay, this part has to be attributed to God. Like,
right, yeah, definitely. Yeah, Yaakov?
Do you not need a certain observational data where you do see a lack of prime movement?
So I'll just give you a little teaser here. According to Fesser's interpretation of the prime mover argument or whatever, the unmoved mover, the only observational data you need is any example of change. Yeah. And that what he says is people misunderstand Aristotle's proof because they think that he means motion, but in Aristotelian lingo, motion means change. And the idea is that you can't have any change without God. And so as long as you have any experience of change like that, then that's all you need.
Does that sound to the first cause thing?
I think that refers to many things. Yeah, I think there's different proofs of that. Yeah.
It also depends on which prime mover.
Yeah, already too far afield. I just thought I would clarify it because I have not taught this halacha in yeshiva since 2020, and I feel like you got to stop and explain these things. Yeah, Tamar?
I just want to clarify what was the scope of this discussion we just had about this.
Yeah.
You're not really explaining what this proof is about, right? You're just saying that
I'm alluding to a secret PowerPoint that I have that explains it the way that not very
right.
And yeah. Okay. So, but going back to the main point, what is the Rambam's main point? What if you could summarize in your own words what characterization of God the Rambam's trying to convey here? I mean, he does it in detail, but what is the point about God that he wants to make?
Catalyst kind of, or
I'm asking about the entire thing, not just that last part.
Oh.
I'll see.
Of what?
Everyone.
Okay, can you differentiate that from creator? Because famously, and Rebbe makes this point in the Yesodei Torah shiurim, which hopefully we've all listened to, that he does not call God the creator here. This is not the idea of God as creator. And in fact, in the first Iker, in the 13 Ikarim, there are 4 Ikarim about God. Which Iker does God as creator belong to?
What was that?
There are 13 Ikarim, and the first 4 are about God. Where does Rambam talk about the creation, God's creation of the universe? It's not in the first Iker. It's in the 4th Iker, which is about God's eternality and God being outside of time. So Rambam would allocate it there, not in the first one. So Art Scroll is wrong, by the way, or not Art Scroll. Whoever wrote the Ani Mamins printed in the Sidurim, I think they try to make it sound like the idea of God as the creator is in the first Iker, but according to the Rambam, it's not. It's in the 4th Iker. So the idea that the Rambam is getting across is God as the independent source of all existence, the independent cause of all existence, and us as contingent existences. Okay, which is different than the idea of creator. Okay, because again, I don't know how much people know from the basics, but stop me if this is too basic. Just say stop. The wall and the shadow of Aristotle, right? Aristotle held that the universe was uncreated, but he held that it was caused by God. How can you have something that's created but not caused? So imagine a wall with a shadow. The shadow is caused by the wall, but the wall doesn't do an act of creating the shadow,
It's like
right?
an accident of the existence.
It's an accident of the primary existence. And so Aristotle held that God is eternal and the universe is eternal, but the universe is dependent on God.
But the universe is eternal in the sense that because God is eternal and God must create. Not must, but since creation is
you can't call it creation according to Aristotle.
Right. Other existences.
Yeah.
Is a must if God exists.
Yeah, is a consequence of God's
The
existence.
only question on that is like, could he not fathom an existence outside of this universe? I mean, according to Aristotle, you can't disprove let's say multiverse per se. According to that,
I've never thought about the combination of things. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that I think would be too far afield. I just wanted to say that the idea here is that God is the is an intrinsic existence, so to speak, that our existence is not intrinsic to us. We, at one point, we did not exist. We exist now, and at one point, then we won't exist, or at least our bodies won't exist. And if you get cars, then your soul won't exist either. You know, existence is endowed, a quality that is endowed to us. Whereas with God, it is, so to speak, an intrinsic. God doesn't have attributes, but God and existence are inseparable, so to speak. You know, yeah, Ariel.
So I'm still trying to understand, like, with the shadow on the wall, meaning like we're like the shadow.
Yeah,
right?
the universe is the shadow, and
Aristotle
Aristotle is.
The way you put it, like other beings must exist.
Aristotle viewed it as God in the mashal is the wall, and the shadow is the universe.
Yeah.
And the shadow must result from the universe. Like if you have the
Big enough light.
yeah, if you have a wall with a shadow, then the wall has to cast a shadow, and the wall, you can't have a wall without the shadow. You know, in this
So
mashal.
basically,
So that's why he held that the universe had to exist because of God's existence, and they're both eternal, and they're both unchanging. But the universe is dependent on God.
And change occurs inside the universe?
it's
Not real change.
Okay.
Yeah. Not changes in the laws of nature. That's why Aristotle denies miracles.
so
Okay.
meaning we're just the astronaut of God. I'm still trying to understand.
According to Aristotle, yeah. This is not according to Torah.
Oh, okay, good. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, we hold like
Yes.
creation yesh me'ayin. We hold that God created the universe out of nothing. See, this is what happens if you don't listen carefully in Yesodei Torah. I'm glad you asked. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like a little confused.
Yeah, Aristotle. Yeah, not Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah. Bereshit's bara Elokim
I know
es
that
haaretz.
sounds a little
Yeah.
confusing.
Okay. Yeah, Tamar.
Could you just repeat again? Sorry, what the translation was of Matzoi Rishon?
First existence, and first not in chronologically, but in existence or logically. The example I give is the chronological order of courses at a meal is appetizer, entree, dessert. Okay, that's chronologically. Okay, but what's the first course logically or existentially? The entree. Why?
Because it's the most nutrition.
No.
The essence of
It's the essence of the meal, but what's more so. But why not appetizer? Yeah, the definition of appetizer is that which prepares you for the meal. It appetizes you, right? Okay, so you can't logically have an appetizer without a meal. So next time like you're on a date and she just orders like an appetizer, say wrong and storm out, you know, illogical. Yeah. Yeah. So in other words, what do you call it? So that's the difference between, so chronologically, appetizer comes first, but then logically and existentially, the entree comes first. So here, it's not saying that God is the first in time, because God's not in time. It means that the concept of a primary existence must come before any other existence, and also God Himself is Matsui Rishon, is the underlying existence of all existence. That's why we call him Hamakom. He's like the substratum, to use terms that no one uses except in this yeshiva. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, Tamar.
Maybe this is too in the weeds, but are you making a distinction between like primary existence and like first in terms of causality? Is that the same thing, or is that a different idea?
Okay, it's a different idea, but I don't know if I have the vocabulary or clarity to express the difference, because there's okay. I'll try saying there's causality in terms of dominoes, right? Like this domino knocks over that domino, that knocks over that domino. And then there's causality of like, I can't explain right now. I got to review my logics and metaphysics. Yeah. So sorry.
So in terms of this right now, like, what are we doing right now with this?
We're reviewing the Yesodei halachos. Yeah. So we're reviewing it because Rabbeinu Bachya referenced it, and I wanted to look at the actual source. But again, like I gotta answer this. I always have to do this because this is the derech. Thanks. So Ariel's asking two questions. He's saying one question is, why are we, what led us here? Okay, that's one kind of causality. He's also asking, but why are we doing this? Right, so this is, so this is the Rambam, the Rambam's derech, which Rebbe quotes a lot. And this is also my derech in teaching, because the Rambam's derech in teaching. In the last Mishnah in Brachos, he goes off on a tangent. And we know this because he says it's a tangent, okay? And at the very end, he says that this is not the place to talk about this subject. It was a tangent. Ella darki tamid b'chol makom sheyesh eze remez b'inyanei emuna eva'er mashahu. My way, my derech, all the time in every place is whenever there is even a hint about matters of emuna, then I explain something of it. Okay. Ki chashuv etzli lahaspir yesodas yoser mikol davar acher shani malamed. It is more important for me to explain any of the yesodos than anything else that I teach. Right. So the reason why I decided to go into this more in depth than I had planned is because this is the Yesodei Yesod. So I felt like we should go through it more in depth. So that's the larger reason why we're doing this right now. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. But now the question is, Rabbeinu Bachya references that idea in his own language. Okay. But I think we can agree it's the same idea, right? He just says it in his own language. The question is, why is he bringing this in here in terms of the idea of bracha? Right, I'll make this bigger. Oops, so you can see. So just to say it again, right, by way of the pshat on this subject, the blessings are not for the sake of God, but rather they're for the sake of humans. For since he is the source of blessing and all blessings derive from him, and no matter how many beings bless him, none of the blessings are worthy to him, for he is the primary existence who brought all existences into being, and they only exist because of his existence. And everything is dependent on him, and his existence is self-sufficient. He isn't dependent on anyone else whatsoever. And if all of them would bless him all day long and proclaim his praises all day and are not silent at night, what gain would he have in this? What could they give him? What could he take from their hand? There's no blessing or gain except for ourselves. So I know there's that other part, which is like nishmas. Ignore that for a second. Why does he look at the way that the Abudirham said the idea? Okay, that he's the source of all blessings, and look at the way that Rabbeinu Bachya ben Asher said the idea. He's adding something by bringing in all these sentences. Question is, how does this affect our understanding of Baruch? Yeah, Ali.
I guess in that, similar to what we talked about in the Rambam and connected to Aristotle, right? It adds the component of instead of just saying that God is the source of all of these things, we're saying that we aren't the source. Like it's a negative quality of us.
Okay, that is definitely true. I think you're on something the way you're thinking about it. Anyone else want to say or add?
Well, I was gonna say something. I mean, it seems like he's really focusing on the fact that it's really from our perspective, not from.
Okay, yeah, that's something true. We'll talk about it in a second. That you're talking about this part. Again, is for ourselves, and we can't help. We can't do anything for him.
Like they're for the sake of humans.
Yeah.
For since he is a source of blessing. Yeah, it just seems like he's just really focused on us. Like obviously we're not blessing God. It's for our.
Right. So, but that's what I'm asking is that is the that point could have been made in the Abudirham just by saying God is the source of blessings and he doesn't receive it from others. The Rabbeinu Bachya is adding this whole Hilchos Yesodei, a Torah dimension. So I'm asking, how does that change the idea?
Well, I mean, just from the Abudirham, I don't know if you could really. From the Abudirham, you understand that God's a source of blessings, but you don't really learn that that is really for our sake.
That's true. You don't learn it from our sake; it's for our sake. But so that's why I'm acknowledging.
Relate to it a little different.
Right? Yeah, that's true. So let me make it clear. Let me do what I always do if I want to clarify something. Color code it. Okay. So the blessings are not for the sake of God. Okay, but rather they're for the sake of humans. Okay, that's a point here. There's no gain or blessing. What could they give him? What could he take from their hand? Okay, so all of that is okay. All of that is 1 point. Okay, I know people on the audio can't see. I'm asking, what does he add with all of this stuff, all of the blue? Since he is the source of blessing and all blessings derive from him, he is the primary existence who brought all existences into being, and they only exist because of his existence, and everything is dependent on him, and his existence is self-sufficient. He isn't dependent on anyone whatsoever.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, so I was thinking about this. That if you scroll up to the Abudirham, he's simply saying, not saying.
Yeah, right.
Simple idea. But he's simply saying that God. He's saying what it is about. He said what it is that we're describing.
Yeah.
And Rabbeinu Bachya is spelling out how that is true.
Okay,
I
how?
mean, he's showing that it's not just that God doesn't receive these things.
Yeah.
It's that it's not possible for God to receive these things.
Okay,
And it's not
that's a good
possible for us
point.
to give them either.
Okay, that is actually a good point. I feel like there's one more fundamental point, and this is the other side of the coin. Yeah, Ayala?
I was gonna say that I feel like the first one, Abudirham is looking at it in terms of like this specific bracha is from Hashem,
Yeah.
whereas this is like a fundamental idea that we're recognizing when we say bracha.
Okay, what's the fundamental idea? You're right. What's the
That like every single thing is dependent upon Hashem.
Okay, maybe you guys are all thinking this. I feel like we're on the precipice. Yeah, tomorrow.
I feel like I'm saying the same thing as everyone else, but
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. I kind of think it's like you could have an accidental source of blessing or like a essential
That's it.
source of blessing.
That's the idea. Okay, in other words, like this. If we just had the Abudirham, we would say, who is the source of blessing? Oh, is it that one? That one? No, it's that one. Right? It's God, right? But the Rabbeinu Bachya is explaining why. God is the cause of all existence, and that's why he is the source of all blessing. And then the other side of the coin is what Chaim is saying, which is that because God is the source of all existence and anything that exists comes from God and is dependent on God, therefore you can't give him anything, because where would you have gotten it from other than from him? You know, so Abudirham, so I would say, like, obviously Abudirham holds by these ideas, but he's just explaining what he's functioning as a פירוש on Tefilah, like what the thing means. The Rabbeinu Bachya is unpacking the philosophical premise of that, which is God is the makor habracha because he is the intrinsic existence, the Yesodei, he's the mamsi kol hanimsa. You know, he is the only being who has intrinsic existence that everything else derives from, you know. So it's supporting giving this philosophical underpinnings of the concept of makor habracha. Yeah, is that point clear? And that's a tremendous thing to recognize, because what it means is when you say Baruch Atoh Hashem. Actually, I'll summarize at the end. Okay. Now let's go to the other point that you wanted to say, which is that we can't give him anything. So now we know why we can't give him anything, right? But then why are we saying this? We're saying it for us. Now, this is a premise that we know from Tefilah 101, right? That all tefillahs are for us. But I think since the purpose of this shiur is to like shore up our kavana, right? Then there's a certain additional layer of absurdity and shame that you will get if you catch yourself mindlessly saying tefillos, okay? Because here's the thing, is if you are mindlessly chopping vegetables, okay, the vegetables still get chopped, okay? If you're mindlessly, like you can even be mindlessly like, I don't know, doing certain things that require like some level of intelligence, but the whole purpose of Tefilah is to review ideas and apply them to yourself to change through them, right? So if you catch yourself like, you know, saying a bracha without thinking about it, which we all do, it's an absurd action, because it's not only absurd, it borders on heresy. Okay, and I don't mean to say that you're actually a kofar. What I mean is like if I'm talking to, let's see, how would I put this? If I'm talking to you and I'm not listening to myself, then like you're still like hearing what I'm saying. Okay, but and it's affecting you in whatever way it affects you. If you're saying this to God, you're not affecting him at all, because the thing never was supposed to affect him. The only reason you're saying it is for yourself, you know? So it's like I think this could be like it's like converting every bracha into a self-tochacha machine, you know, of like I'm only doing this for myself, and I'm acknowledging that by saying you are the makor habracha, right? And I'm not doing anything for you. I'm only doing this for me, right?
It turns every mindless action of a bracha into an act of insanity.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, with that, it's almost like counterintuitive, right? To review an idea and really process it kind of requires a certain type of awareness and attention.
Yeah.
So,
otherwise, you're not reviewing it.
Right,
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'd say absurd, because paradox gives it a certain amount of dignity that like, ooh, it's a paradox. Like it has to be like this. No. If you're doing something mindless and you're not being mindful, then that's called being an idiot. Like, you know, and we're all idiots when it comes to saying brachos. Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know. Exactly. Right. So let's just summarize what we have so far. We have three ideas of Baruch, right? First is the pshat, which is that God is the makor habracha. It's not a verb. You're not blessing God. You're saying he is the makor habrachos. Secondly, you're explaining why. Because he is the source of all existence. See, this is what I meant when I said that this is a midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the one hand, it's a midah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in terms of action, that God he gives brachos to everyone. But on the other hand, kaviyachol, it is a midah of God's essence, right? I'm not saying that it's actually God's essence, because then you would end up with the eternal universe. Like God has to give bracha, he doesn't have to do anything. But we call God hatov hametiv, right? That existence is good, and like the only reason why God is the makor bracha is because he's the cause of all existence, So you are talking about something that is like for example, we actually have a Shem Hashem that references this idea, which is Kel Shakai, right? Which means the God who is enough, right? And so the way that the Rambam explains it, there's different opinions. Chazal say it's Misha Amar La'olamo Dai, the one who said to his world enough, which is reference to fine tuning, according to Rabbi Fader, his explanation. But the Rambam says it's the being who has enough existence for himself and for others. You don't even have enough existence for yourself because you don't endow yourself with existence. But it's like, it's literally the words that Rabbeinu Bachya just used, that his existence is self-sufficient, right? And therefore, and that's why he can give existence to other things. So it's like referencing to this idea that all bracha comes from God. So that's the second idea in saying baruch. And then the third idea is because he's the makor brachos and can't receive them from you, and all the brachos you have are from him, and you can't give anything to him because he's independent existence. Therefore, when you say baruch, you're reminding yourself that this is all for me, that this is itself, for my benefit, which we'll get to in a later share. Yeah, Ayala?
So I'm not sure if this is too broad of a question for now, but like, I feel like, how does the idea of gratitude to people fit into this? Like, is that merely like a psychological thing? Like it makes people feel good, or like, is there some truth that we are recognizing that people can do good and it's not? Yeah,
that's a good question. I feel like I have to take that up in a Stoic Jew podcast episode because yeah, it is a good question, because you're saying because people are ultimately only able to do good because of God, right? It's like that pasuk in Tehillim in Hallel that we reference from time to time. In this, hold on a second here. Hallel is. It's in Kuf Yud Ches. One of these psukim we always quote about.
Isn't this Kuf Tes Zayin?
Kuf Tes Zayin?
What are you thinking about?
That's right. I can't remember what I'm thinking about.
Oh, man or God?
Oh no, about Hashem li be'ozrai. Is that in 118? I think that's
right there.
Thank you. Hashem li be'ozrai. Hashem is with me through my helpers. And Radak says, Hashem imi hu imozrai v'lo yihye be'oiv v'koch really. Is this a bad Radak? Okay, I don't know. But there's this idea that we referenced before. Oh, wait. Yeah, here we go. Tov halachos Hashem. I guess it wasn't on that pasuk. He says, Al derech shamar Yirmiyah. So the pasuk says, Tov halachos Hashem miptok bin divim. Better to take refuge in Hashem than to trust in nobles. Tov halachos Hashem al derech shamar Yirmiyah umin Hashem yasur libo. So he's quoting Yirmiyahu that says, Aru hagever asher yiftach ba'adam. Cursed is the man who trusts in man. The sam basar zero and makes flesh his strength. Umin Hashem yasur libo, and he turns his heart away from Hashem. So it sounds like he's saying trusting in human beings is bad. But then he says, Ela im yiftach ba'adam, rather if you trust in a person, yasim ha'ikar bakel, you should make the essence of your trust be in God. Sheyitin b'lev ha'adam hanadiv la'azar, that God literally places in the heart of the person to help you. It doesn't mean God controls their mind, but it means that any like willingness that the person has to help you is because of God, right? So just that's the short answer to your question, Ayala, which is that gratitude to a person recognizes them as a chain in the cause and effect, and they did have bechira, right, to be able to help you, but ultimately all halachos has to go to God. Like the best model is with your with kibbud av aim, like the Sefer Chinuch's idea that you recognize that your parents are the cause of your existence and they raised you, and you have halachos tov, but then that leads you to recognize that, oh, they only were able to have you because of their parents, and their parents is going all the way back to God.
Sure.
So it's thanking others should be a vehicle of bringing you to gratitude towards God. That's what I would say off the cuff. Yeah.
So maybe I missed the last question, but like it's a question like when you give gratitude to other people.
Yeah, like what's the deal with that? Does it make any? Is it just a social thing? Because given the fact that everything comes from God, what's the sense in thanking other people? So I'm saying there's definitely is a mitos tovos thing of thanking other people, but I'm saying also thanking other people is a vehicle for recognizing that God is the cause of all good.
Well, there's an Agada like that.
Yeah.
With Abudirham, with the Isham.
Right. Is he says, don't thank me, like they thank him. And he say, thank the one who this came from. Yeah, right. Okay, I think it's a good stopping point for today. We only got through a third of the Baruch sources. Okay, but I think there's real idea density here. And because you say Baruch at least 100 times a day, if you're fulfilling Chazal's halacha, probably more because it's also in like psukim, then you got bracha arichtas, we're saying on both ends. Then I think this idea has a lot of mileage, right? That if we have these ideas. So here's your homework, okay? In one bracha each day, review this idea, okay? And I think you'll get better results if you designate which bracha you're going to do this for. It could be, for example, like the first bracha I make in the morning, right? It could be like the first bracha on food I make. It could be the first bracha of the Shemona Esrei. Pick one bracha and make that a bracha where you think about these ideas, these three ideas. Every time you say, just the first time you say that bracha, and then see if it helps. Okay, and then we'll branch out as we go. Okay. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.